Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 155, Evolution Without Hinderance. And this episode is really about me waxing poetic about this idea of maybe everything is perfect. Maybe there is a divine plan, not only guiding us individually, but also guiding us collectively as humanity on this planet. See for yourselves. Enjoy the episode.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci. Here to remind you that you are a spiritual being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. Make the most of it. This is season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 155, Evolution Without Hinderance. Let's go right into it. Are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your presence, guidance, and support through this episode. Please help these words to be useful to all listeners on their evolutionary journey. Let me know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please let this episode reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. Evolution without hinderance. This is a term that I first heard from my spiritual teacher, Master John Douglas. And I've been pondering a lot lately what that means, especially in light of everything happening on the planet right now. This very interesting, monumentous, important moment that we're having right now. And when I think about evolution without hindrance, it evokes this idea of a bigger picture, a bigger plan, maybe a divine plan. I happen to be someone who talked about very openly, feels as though we as souls, there's this whole process that we go through before we come into the body, before we incarnate, before we are embodied in these human forms on this planet. And part of this is deciding with our guides, with our counsel, what we are going to accomplish in this lifetime. How we're going to set up for success, what kind of parents we're going to have, what kind of body we're going to have, its abilities, maybe the intelligence of that body, the athleticism of that body, and pick our different situations, our different relationships, our different jobs and vocations and schools, based on what we need to grow in. If there are areas that we are not perfect, of which there are many, what are we going to do in this lifetime to become better, to grow in those areas? And so one could say that we set up almost every major, if not every major thing that happens in our lives. And that includes things that people find it difficult to believe we would set up. It includes all of the wonderful things and all of the challenging things. All of the wonderful things like having a loving partner or creating children or a business or having a beautiful circle of friends that's there to support you, having these talents that might help bring beautiful things to the world, and on and on and on, as well as challenges or things that most humans would consider maybe tragic, losing people, becoming sick, becoming injured, altercations with friends or family or loved ones, losing a job, losing a house, any of these other major things on the more, what we would consider the more negative side of life. And we all have both. And I don't know how many people see these things as pre-planned or part of your plan. I think it's common for us in the human body to not remember that we're a soul that is inhabiting this costume for a little bit, this role for a little bit, and then going back to who we truly are. Thinking of this whole experience as one big school, Earth school, and that every single thing, or maybe most things, we'll say the big things on all sides, right? The big things you would view as positive, the big things you would view as negative, are all, in fact, part of the journey that you yourself helped to create. You were one of the screenwriters of this play. So that also makes sense that this would be the same for the collective. Not just your individual consciousness and your individual goals and dreams and growth experiences and lessons and karma, but also the collective consciousness, our collective growth and dreams and desires and evolution and karma. So an individual divine plan and perhaps a collective divine plan, right? The intricacies of how all this can be arranged are unfathomable. Unfathomable. My head starts to spin just thinking about one life and all the different people and ways and timing and synchronicities and signs and blah, 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 all of it that is unfolding in one life. And then you take every other soul who is embodied in this planet right now, and they all intertwine, and they all have their individual divine plan, if you will. And then looking at the collective, well, we're all here together. Earth must have a divine plan as well. Earth also has a trajectory. It also has an evolution and also has growth experiences. It might also have karma. I don't know. I'm not that person who maybe can speak to that. Is Earth a being? Does Earth have a soul? I don't know. But certainly, if we as individuals have a divine plan, the collective also must as well. And so how do we achieve what we set out to do without hindrance, without getting caught up, without taking the wrong turn, without falling off the track? A few episodes ago was the episode, The Real GPS, and I talked a lot about how I think I called it God's positioning system in that. And you can insert whatever, word works for you. A lot of people, understandably, have trouble with the word God. That's not what this episode is about. But, change it out for whatever you want. Source, creator, maker, whatever. But the point being for that episode is that when we type in something to the GPS to get somewhere, it'll give us the most direct route. Well, that's great. And sometimes we make choices because we have free will, and we might take a turn that looks better to us, and it might add some time. But it will reroute to the same destination, etc., etc., etc. So if this is something that we can apply to our life path, then I have to believe that that is also something that is applied to our collective divine path. I guess what I'm getting at here is, with so much happening in the world right now, on so many different levels, and as I said a few episodes ago, this really feels like the moment. This really feels like the moment. I don't know exactly how to describe that, but it feels like the moment. With so many different things happening, and with our individual divine plans, we must have a collective divine plan for where we're headed. And with our rerouting system, even if we make free will choices that put up roadblocks, that slow us down, that take us off track, that make us take longer, that hinder us, in other words, that hinder us in some way. We do this individually, or maybe doing it collectively now. Even if that is the case, is there not also, if there is a divine plan for our own individual lives, is there not also a divine plan for the collective? And so the new idea becomes, what if all these little things, and some big things, right, that appear to be hindrances to us individually and collectively, I guess little and huge things, right, in our own lives and just for the world, what if these things that seem like they would slow us down, put up a wall, all of these things, what if these are all still part of the divine plan? What if they're not actually slowing us down or hindering us at all? What if our contract is to actually evolve no matter what? And maybe it is different for every individual. Maybe some individuals hinder themselves more than others. But I have to believe that because we are here for such a short amount of time, if we're looking at eternity, a lifetime looked at from the divine level or a cosmic level, really just a blink of an eye, one thread in this enormously complex, beautiful tapestry of the history of creation. One prong in an infinitely long comb. I don't know. Very quick, if looked at from a different angle. For us, it feels like everything right now. It feels like everything, every moment, every year. But on some level, I feel like, it seems like, it may be that the Maker's plan must continue, must happen. The show must go on, to use a different kind of term on it. What if these small hindrances really just iron out over the period of several lifetimes, several hundred lifetimes, several thousand lifetimes, and we're not actually being hindered in any way? And in fact, these things that are happening right now are all divinely perfect. What if everything that's happening right now is perfect? My guidance is saying that this is one way to explain it. That forces, maybe opposing forces, maybe negative forces. Some people are describing what's happening as a battle between good and evil, a spiritual battle. And I can definitely get in that mindset. I've described it like this. Maybe it is that. Maybe this is actually a spiritual battle, a battle between good and evil, light and dark, however you want to call it. Maybe that's real. But isn't there something bigger? Isn't there a bigger picture? Isn't there a overarching divine plan, even that supersedes that battle? Doesn't everything have to trend towards evolution? It's natural, it's universal natural law that things grow. Baby comes out, they grow. A seed is planted, it grows. And any other analogy you can think of, but it's in nature to grow, to evolve. And so when I found myself these last few weeks, and maybe you picked up on this from my last episode, the assault on truth, I feel like I was a bit more spicy in that episode than I am. I definitely have my feelings and everything, but I maybe don't get so spicy. So in light of me really seeing material earthly situations that can be concerning, especially pointing them out in the last episode, I feel like I've kind of swung the other way and wanted to really, really zoom out. Really just zoom out and say, okay, this is all going on now. But like, what's the bigger picture? What is the bigger picture? And I'm sure that there have been thousands, millions of planets that have blown themselves up in the course of their evolution. Was that in their plan? I don't know. Then do they start over? Is it a different process? I'm not saying that we're going to do that. I'm saying that as an extreme example of something that I have a visceral memory of in one of my past lifetimes. That's not a super comfortable memory. But was that part of the evolutionary plan and timeline for that particular planet and all of the souls that happened to be on it at that time or involved with it as part of their growth, everyone's growth, not just one individual on that planet, but everyone's collective evolution and growth? Maybe everything that is seemingly negative that's happening on this planet right now is for us. Some way teaching us, growing us, evolving us. There is no hindrance to our evolution. Maybe there are momentary hindrances, but maybe on a high level, on a bird's eye view level of this creation, maybe everything's perfect. It's really easy to go into specific moments of our lives and say, oh, if I had just done this, if I had just done that, if I had gotten here a minute sooner, or if I had turned the corner 2 minutes later, or if I had taken this class instead of that class, or if I had chosen this school instead of that school, this wouldn't have happened. X wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have met this person. I wouldn't have gotten in this accident. I wouldn't have felt like I needed to go into this vocation. And that can run the whole scale. And I find that I've been wondering those things as a collective lately, and I don't think it's useful. Maybe you're not doing this. Maybe I'm the only one in the world that's thinking that way, but what's been dropping in is just to see the big picture. Just to have some kind of knowing, some kind of faith, I guess. Faith is an interesting word now. I don't see faith as being a religious term because I believe that the maker or the creator or the source or the supreme being, all of that exists outside of religion, because religion is a human construct, and this higher power source existed before and around and is. And so faith for me is not a religious word. That could be an interesting episode to talk about faith. There's so many things to talk about. And I guess I'm just curious what folks are feeling. Is this all something that has a particular ending? Is this pre-written? Is everything that we're going through now already preordained? No matter what free will we have, because we do have free will. We have enough free will. I've heard that we have 50% free will, 50% pre-planned, preordained. Fate, some people would say, but things that are spelled out and chosen for your life path and will happen at some point, whether or not you remember they're going to happen or it's going to happen. But 50% free will, I mean, if that's true, if it's 50-50, that's a lot of free will. So can we still get to the end? Can we still get to the destination? Or are we going to get held up? I think at this moment, I'm choosing to remember, or choosing to maybe not remember, but to be in the frame of mind of, yeah, what if everything was exactly what it needs to be right now, and that we're all evolving individually and collectively at the exact rate that we're supposed to. This thing's happening at this part of the planet, that thing's happening. There's lots of negativity. Seems to be all we hear about, even though there's so many positive things happening on the planet too. What if it's perfect? I think it would be a really interesting thing. I guess this is kind of my whole thing for doing this is just remembering, obviously, this is what I say all the time, that we're souls having a temporary human experience on this planet, right? But what if we really sink into that? Would it make life easier? Would we be able to step outside of all of the small things that hold us up or stress us out? Are we allowed to do that? Is that this planet even allowed to get, are we ready to get to that level of evolution? That is just an accepted thing. This seems to be the planet that forgot, right? The planet that forgot divinity. But what if that's all perfect and we're just not there yet? And that this whole process, this transition moment, feels like a transition moment to me anyway. But maybe people who have been on the planet longer than me would say, yeah, it feels like this every decade. That could be. But maybe we're getting somewhere. Maybe we're evolving at exactly the right pace. And one thing that I really wanted to get across in this episode is, what are those things that appear to be hindering you? That you would see as a hindrance, that you would see as a stressor, as something that's holding you up, as something that's holding you back, something that's slowing you down. Is it a person? Is it a thing? Is it a belief system, an attachment, a law, a regulation, a way of being, a way of thinking? What are your hindrances? And can they be reframed? Can you reframe these as things that are helping you to accomplish the things that you yourself screen wrote into this play? And those things that are bigger, that affect so many people at the same time, or maybe the entire world in some cases, are those things hindrances? Are those things out of left field, wasn't planned, holding us back, slowing us down, slowing our evolution? Or are those things actually part of the plan? Are those things divine? Are those things helping us to wake up? Are those things helping us to evolve? Are those things helping us to learn what we need to learn and to grow as a collective, as a humanity, as a planet? Is this planet evolving? Does this planet have a consciousness itself? So we get to decide, I think. We get to decide what vibration we want to be in and hold that. And it's so important right now because whatever you are ripples out and it affects everything and everyone around you. That's just physics. Talk about science. I talk a lot about spirituality. I really wanted this podcast to be where science and spirituality meet. And I think for me it is, but I don't really have the gift of scientific jargon, even though come from an academic and research background. But I think that the spirituality comes across fine, and maybe the science doesn't. But what you put out does affect other people, and that's just physics. So there's the science for the episode. What if we're all just evolving and it's perfect? Including the collective, including humanity, including the planet, and everything and everyone on it. Let's see what happens. And while we're seeing what happens, let's try to have as high a vibration as possible. Or even neutral. Neutral is better than throwing out negative vibes. And I have found myself getting sucked into what's going on in the planet and lowering my own vibration. And then that affects my own thoughts. It affects my sleep. It affects the people around me. I don't want to do that. So, friendly reminder, if we can't be positive, let's be neutral. But if you can be positive, let's do that. And we can all continue to evolve without hindrance. I'm going to leave it there for now. As always, thank you for listening. Stay positive, stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be an angel donor to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.